You've heard the verse from the Old Testament, don't commit adultery. But what I say is this, anyone who checks out a woman thinking what she'd be like in bed has already committed adultery with her in his heart. It's Matthew 5:28, quoted from the Burmeister's New Testament, which I'll leave a link to in the description. It appears that Jesus is saying that staring at a woman with lustful thoughts is the same as adultery. Is it really? Of course it's not. That would be absurd. Religions believe ridiculous things like that. Throughout the ages, Christians have misunderstood verses like this. Let me clear this one up. Some sins are worse than others, and most sins have varying degrees of severity. Jesus said so. John 19:11. Jesus replied, "You don't have any authority at all over me except that which was given to you from above." Because of this, the one who betrayed me and facilitated my arrest, handing me over into your custody, has a worse sin. Notice the words Jesus spoke. Worse sin. There, he said it. Some sins are worse than others. Before we return to Matthew 5:28, let's put aside the Bible for a moment and turn our attention to a hypothetical scenario and see what common sense tells us. Let's say there are two married couples, both having children, couple A and couple B. Couple A is Alvin and Alicia Anderson. Couple B is Barry and Belinda Baker. Couple A, Alvin and Alicia, are driving across town. Alvin sees a scantily clad, attractive woman on the sidewalk and ogles her. Alicia notices and is not pleased. Which of the two responses do you expect from Alicia? A. Alicia elbows Alvin in the ribs and tells him to pay attention to his driving. B. Alicia breaks down crying, and when she gets home, grabs the kids and takes them to her parents' house and calls his lawyer. Now couple B, Barry and Belinda. Belinda suspects that Barry has been cheating on her, and over the course of a few months, her suspicions are confirmed. Which of these two responses do you expect from Belinda? A. Belinda makes a snide remark to Barry and forgets about it. B. After sobbing for a while, Belinda packs up the kids and takes them to her parents' house and then calls a lawyer. If Alicia divorces Alvin because he stared at a woman the wrong way, she'd be overreacting. If Belinda leaves Barry upon discovering that he's been having an affair, some might wonder if she could have salvaged her marriage, but generally speaking, leaving Barry will not be considered an overreaction by many, if not most people. This is common sense. A married man ogling a woman isn't the same as he sleeping with her. From a Christian perspective, both are wrong and both are considered sins. This is the point Jesus is making in Matthew 5:28. But the point Jesus is not making is saying that ogling a woman and committing adultery with her are equivalent, that one is just as bad as the other. Both are wrong, but one is far worse than the other. Let me give you another analogy. Most states in the U.S. and countries throughout the world have laws concerning assault and battery. While all assault is wrong and illegal, some forms of it are worse than others. In the U.S., there's misdemeanor assault and felony assault and shades in between. For one adult male to strike another adult male is misdemeanor assault. That's wrong, but there are worse kinds of assault. If the same man were to strike a pregnant woman or a child, that's worse than striking an adult man. Inflicting serious injury on a person is worse than simple assault. Assault with a deadly weapon with intent to kill is worse than simple assault. All of these are classified as assault, but some are worse than others. This is all common sense, and if you put it aside, you'll fail to understand the point Jesus made multiple times in the Sermon on the Mount, which Matthew 5:28 is taken from. I'll add to the argument with another passage. Paul wrote this to the Corinthians, 1 Corinthians 5:1. News is going around that there's actually fornication, i.e. sexual immorality, among you, the sort of fornication that you don't even find among the heathens, to the effect that someone's having sex with his stepmother. Paul insinuated that there's varying degrees of fornication. Some types of fornication are more sinful than others. Let's pause a moment and reflect on this. So often Christians lump all fornication into one bucket and treat it as a binary. Christians get just as bent out of shape for what amounts to little sexual sins as they do for big ones. They have no perspective. Let me repeat. According to 1 Corinthians 5:1, Paul insinuates that all fornication is sinful, but some types of fornication are more sinful than others. Sleeping with one's mother-in-law is an abomination according to Leviticus 18:8, which Paul was familiar with and which caused him to become so irate. That entire chapter of Leviticus is a list of the vilest types of fornication. You can read the chapter for yourself, but I'll read the ending. Leviticus 18:28 through 30. And if you defile the land, it will vomit you out as it vomited out the nations that were before you. Everyone who does any of these detestable things, such persons must be cut off from their people. Keep my requirements and do not follow any of the detestable customs that were practiced before you came, and do not defile yourselves with them. I am the Lord your God. So if you're struggling with some sexual sin and it's not adultery, which is one of the 10 commandments, and it's not enumerated in the Leviticus 18 list, while it's wrong, chances are it's not abomination level wrong. So what point was Jesus making in Matthew 5:28? Jesus said that if a man looks at a woman with a lustful eye, he's already committed adultery with her in his heart. Committing adultery in one's heart is not nearly as bad as the actual act of adultery. Not even close. But it is the precursor to it. Jesus goes after the precursors in the Sermon on the Mount. In other words, if you sin by breaking one of the 10 commandments, that sin must have begun as a thought and grew. It didn't just happen all of a sudden. It started as a random thought, then the thought was left unchecked and grew into the full-blown sin of adultery or murder. Certainly the full-blown breaking of the commandment is wrong, but the precursor to it is wrong too. What Jesus left unsaid is that the precursor, though wrong, is not as serious.